Welcome. I'm Rita Taddonio, the interim director at Providence House, and we're with
Dana Kaplan, and I am the closed Rikers czar for the office of the New York City mayor.
We're very excited to have you, Dana.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Okay. So focusing right away on the closing of Rikers, some of our people who are watching this may not know why that's happening. Could you speak to why that's happening and maybe a little bit about where the process is at this time?
Sure. Rikers Island is, it's not just one jail. It's, I think, one of the, if not the largest penal colony in the United States. So it is about 10 jails on an island that is very isolated, very hard to get to, far from public transportation, in dilapidated buildings built on landfill, and for literal decades, people have been organizing and pushing and calling for the closure of Rikers Island and the replacement with a system that is more humane and more dignified. And in 2019, the New York City Council and the mayor's office passed a plan to close Rikers Island, to replace it with 4 smaller borough-based facilities, a number of hospital beds to treat people with the most medically complex situations, and then I think perhaps most importantly, to also fundamentally reduce the jail population as well. So, you know, the vision really is, how do we have a pretrial system in New York City that is smaller and uses jail only as a last resort, and that when someone is detained, that it is in conditions that are far more humane, with more programming than what there is today.
It's clear that the mayor and the mayor's office of criminal justice really has heard and listened to the people who have been talking about what people need to revamp the system into a more of a restorative justice system than a punitive system. In this process, what have been the challenges?
You know, I mean, I'll acknowledge the buildings are behind schedule.
It's New York.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a massive project. And in many ways, you know, closing Rikers Island isn't easy, but that's the point of it, right? Because it's not, and we're not just trying to close one jail and open a new set of ones that operate the same way. And, you know, that's the whole purpose of saying we're not going to just build to replace the capacity that we have on Rikers Island. It's a moment for New York City to ask ourselves, what should pretrial justice look like? What is the purpose of jail in New York? Do we have the right types of community infrastructure to provide alternatives to sending people to detention? And in many ways, because it's such a large-scale project that goes beyond just, you know, building new buildings, it makes it that much harder. But simultaneously, that is what is so hopeful about this moment, because we have an entire city of people and a mayor and city council who want to get this done and are working together. And I think it's, you know, frankly, just a really exciting time in New York City, thinking about what we can build for the future. I'd love to hear, as a longtime advocate yourself and service provider for justice-impacted women, what are the challenges of women who are currently incarcerated? And how does the experience of incarceration impact them upon their release?
Well, I think, as you know, Dana, the suspension of benefits when someone's arrested, the separation from their children, which causes attachment trauma for the children and a negative impact on the parent-child relationship if they're parents. So many of the women that we talk to, they've lost their IDs and their birth certificates, all of their important papers when they're arrested. Being in jail for any certain amount of time means that you may lose your employment and your housing if you had housing before you started. So there are a lot of impacts. There's a disruption in your medical care, the mental health care that you've been getting. So it's a total disruption of your life, and also most of the women that we have seen who come to us have significant mental illness or trauma, and jail, and I think people try to make it as humane as possible, but it re-traumatizes and it triggers people. So it's really just sets people back.
So what have you learned in your tenure at Providence House that you want the Mamdani administration and us in city government to really understand as we work to close Rikers Island and find alternatives?
What I think Providence House has come to understand, and many of the other groups who work with women, because we work with women specifically, is that gender does make a difference. Gender responsive programming is important. We're all people, but we're different. We process things different. Women communicate differently from men. They are experience relationships in a different way. So women who are involved in this justice system can be successful. They can be out in a transitional shelter or a transitional program while they're awaiting sentencing. And they can be successful in looking at what drove them to that point. But I do think that it's important to remember that it's not just housing people need. We need housing, but people really need to look at what brought them to this point in their lives so that they can move to the other place. And the other piece that's really important is the families. You know, reconnecting with children, even if your child is 50 now, you know, people really need to reconnect with their children, do some healing, and there's a lot of grief work around that. So if I had to pick the two main things, I would say those are the things that I would hope that the administration would keep in mind. You spoke about this a little bit earlier, but in your mind, what does success look like? And not just in closing Rikers, but in building the systems that must exist afterward.
I firmly believe that we will have a safer city when we have fewer, not more people in jail. And I think that part of that path is by strengthening and building continued and sustained and expanded community-based alternatives to incarceration, reentry programs, prevention programs, all of the types of supports that people need at the community level, not in jail itself. I think that our court system can operate more efficiently. I deeply believe that we will better deliver justice when people are not languishing, waiting for, their day in court. I don't think that that's good for defendants, but I also don't think that that's good for victims either. And so, that's the different type of justice system that we're focused on. And I believe that we will have a safer city when the conditions in our city's jails are more humane. And I think that that is better for the people who are incarcerated in them, but I also think that it is better for the staff of any kind, correctional officers, healthcare workers, nonprofit program providers, teachers, who are coming into the city's jails every single day and also should have a safe place to work. So, again, the vision for closing Rikers Island is shaped by the crisis that we've had in the city's jails for many years, but it's also driven by a vision for a very different type of pretrial justice system.
Thank you, Dana. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, it's been really nice to be here and to learn all about Providence House and the work that you all do. So thank you for having this conversation.